Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Giovanni Reyes. Student loans are a huge source of frustration, but soon many Americans may see some relief. President Joe Biden announced a plan to erase $10,000 in federal student loan debt for any borrower with an income below $125,000 a year. He's also canceling an additional $10,000 in loan debt for any student who received a Pell Grant, which helps lower income students pay for college. But Biden has said some types of loans won't be eligible for cancellation, including federal family education loans and Perkins loans. And after a 2-year pause in student loan payments, the Biden administration plan also includes plans to resume payments again soon. According to Forbes, borrowers owe more than $1 trillion in student loan debt. The student loan relief plan has caused a disruption between political parties. 6 Republican controlled states have filed a lawsuit against Biden's loan cancellation program. They argue it goes too far, violating the separation of powers. According to the Brookings Institution, colleges and universities will still take advantage of society's need for people to go to college by relying on student loans, and those loans allow colleges to keep increasing what they charge in tuition. So, what does the future hold for college students? And how will canceling some student loan debt change the choices students make before or after college? On Point, Reina Torres has more.
Thank you, Giovanni. And today joining us, we have Isaiah Jones, Csun student, and we have Jasmine Hallett, Csun student, and we also have Emmanuel Rodriguez from the Institute for College Access and Success. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you. So I want to go ahead and jump into asking you both, Jasmine and Isaiah, how big a role did money play when you were deciding whether to go to college and where to go to college?
I'd say it was 50-50. I'm from Connecticut, so it's a far journey to be going to school at Csun. But yeah, I had to look for affordable options. I know I was gonna have to take out loans, and my dad doesn't make that much, so I knew I was gonna get some help, if not at least a little. But yeah, I would say 50-50. If not, it was 75% made on like my options were based on what was affordable for me.
Thank you. Isaiah?
Yeah, so mine's was it's similar to hers. It's just that I knew that I was going to have to take out the loans because my mother did not make that much money. So it kind of like narrowed down like my dreams and the dream schools. So yeah.
So how was the experience like choosing CSUN to be your first school choice?
It's actually I feel great about the decision I made. It's been very welcoming since I've been here, and I just love the amount of resources that is provided at the campus.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Yeah, I would say it was very welcoming as well. It's still, I think, since I'm a sophomore, it's a little still just getting used to things, but overall, very welcoming.
How has your experience with student loans been like so far?
It's been a little complicated as well because I'm taking out student loans as well as my parents are taking out parent loans. And I've had a little complications, especially this semester. So recently it's been a little hard to navigate, but hopefully this relief or me applying for the relief will help a little.
For sure. Isaiah?
It hasn't been too complicated for me. It's just been just understanding the loans and how it works. It's pretty much.
Okay. So before we get into further discussion, let's take a look at what President Biden's relief plan entails.
My campaign for president, I made a commitment. That would provide student debt relief. And I'm honoring that commitment today. Using the authority Congress granted the Department of Education, we will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans. In addition, students who come from low-income families which allowed them to qualify to receive a Pell Grant, will have their debt reduced $20,000.
Okay, I have a question for Jasmine. What was your reaction when President Biden announced the Biden-Harris administration student debt relief plan to cancel $10,000 in student loan debt in August of this year? Jasmine?
I kind of had mixed feelings because one, obviously, that could possibly benefit me, so that's a good thing. But a bad thing is like it's since it's the whole like whoever's applying is the whole country. I'm curious as to know like how much money like in total is this gonna cost, and like where the funding is coming from.
Okay. Will you be applying?
I haven't decided yet. I'm still discussing with my parents about it.
Isaiah, would you be applying?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So for the sake of our audience, please tell us more about yourself regarding your type of work, Manny.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me time and space to be with you all. My name is Manny Rodriguez. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy here in California for TICAS, the Institute for College Access and Success. We're a nonprofit research advocacy organization who works for affordability, accountability, and equity in higher education. We work at the national level, as well as our two states offices here in California, as well as Michigan.
On the point of financing, as you know, with the Biden-Harris administration student debt relief plan, how will removing student loans of $10,000 change the choices students make before or after college?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think for us at the end of the day, the way we look at this is progress towards putting more people, particularly students, on solid financial ground after college. It's definitely not the silver bullet. I think it's clear that our higher education system is overly reliant on debt financed education, which is not good. But it is progress across the nation, and for millions of borrowers. Here in California, we expect that to be about 3.5 million borrowers who can receive up to 10,000, potentially 20,000, right? So what this means before and after. So after college, one of the things that we'd like to highlight is this will make sure that students do not have to worry about high monthly payments, ballooning balances, and make it harder for them not to build wealth after graduation, whether that's buying a home, investing in money, putting money away from retirement, etc. Before college, I would say that what this means is that one, we shouldn't think this is going to be something on a regular basis. All indications point to this being a one-time thing. So before you go to college, make sure you maximize all your need-based aid through FAFSA here in California, the California Dream Act, merit-based aid through private scholarships. If you do have to borrow, make sure you borrow through the school system, not through private loans, since you do have more protections on that end. And it is a bit safer to borrow. But I think those are what we're looking at.
Thank you, Manny, for that insightful answer. For those in our audience that may not know, how can a student apply for the Biden-Harris administration student debt relief plan?
That is a great question. And I'm going to be honest, I wish I had the crystal clear answer here. But unfortunately, we don't know, don't have all those final details yet. What we do know is the Department of Education plans to release an online application sometime in October, so it should be coming this month. They'll also plan to release a paper version of this application sometime after that, and individuals should have until, if I'm not mistaken, December 31st, 2023 to submit an application for student loan debt relief. I think the most important thing here is make sure students and borrowers know to have their most up-to-date contact information for their servicers so that they can receive instructions, communications in real time. That can be done by updating their contact information and logging into their studentaid.gov account, since that is where most and all reliable information will come.
Thank you. I know we don't know this yet, but what are the factors that a student would encounter? Like, for example, the length of time it takes to fill out an application like this?
I'm not sure until we see that application, until we see those details. I wish I could have a very clear cut answer, but I don't right now. One of the things I will say is TICAS, along with many partners in the consumer rights advocacy space, higher ed advocacy space, student groups, are trying to make this as simple of a process as possible, right? So hopefully this can be just very simplified so that students such as Jasmine, Isaiah could opt in if they make that decision, and it isn't any complicated factors.
Interesting. Thank you. How will removing student loans, either $20,000 and $10,000, relieve any weight off of students' shoulders?
Great question. I think, for me, it kind of boils down, in my opinion, to some of the conversations I've been having with my friends, right? I'm not that far removed from grad school, undergrad, finishing paying off my student loan debts. So I have friends that, right, have been making payments for years, and they finally got it under 20,000. We hear this announcement, right, and they're just under 20. They were Pell eligible. They're about to get all that waived, right? That means they can now go from renting a home to potentially saving up to try to buy something in the future, right? They can look to invest that. They can look to build up any type of business that they were already looking into. So again, it really goes down to, is this a silver bullet? No. Will it help put millions of people on better financial ground? Absolutely, and we shouldn't diminish that.
Yeah. So, do you know like an estimated amount that you've seen that other students have been in debt with?
That is a great question. And it's funny, TICAS is actually in the process right now of putting together a specific California fact sheet that will talk about kind of what that's looking like. Some of the things we do know based on some of the research we already have done in this space is Californians owe more than the average US student loan borrower. About $141.8 billion in student loan debts belongs to California state residents, and the average student loan debt is somewhere around $37,000. So when it comes down to it, right, for so some of those students, the average one, let's say 37, if they get 10, 20 wiped away, that is a good portion that, again, that shouldn't be diminished. And that is going to help them in the long term to build up wealth in the future.
Wow, thank you. And just out of curiosity, why do you think it took so many years to remove some college debt from students?
So first, I think this has been being pushed for years now, right? So everything that happened in August, the announcement was done in a collaborative effort by student groups, consumer rights groups, higher ed advocacy groups, media outlets, bringing more attention to this issue, how it's impacting students, right? So while it is a one-time thing, it did take years to get here. And I think it honestly shows that the rationale that we got here was COVID, right? At the end of the day, a lot of these payments were paused because of the economic impact COVID provided for a lot of borrowers. We saw that was beneficial, and then the conversation started moving a lot faster to say, how can we provide more economic relief during this insane time that we're living in, right? Where we have a pandemic, a health pandemic, but also we're starting to see the economic repercussions. So long term, again, want to emphasize, we don't think this could happen again or might happen again. All indications point that this might have been a one-time thing. But one thing that will come long term that we know the administration is working on is wanting to lower the percentage of monthly income that folks have to pay through income-driven repayment plans. This is to really make payment for whatever remaining balance you have feasible in the long term. So that is something we can expect long term. And I think the one other piece I'll add is that this shows that civic engagement, voting, elections really do have a significance, right? This was attributed to the fact that we had a federal administration, a Department of Education that was willing to make this move to use those powers. So again, this also points to the fact that elections do make things happen. Although we do see a lot of gridlock, some things are happening, and this is a good example of that.
Interesting point, Manny. Jasmine, Isaiah, do you guys want to touch on any experience you guys heard of why it took so long for this to be done, now that it's seen?
From a federal standpoint, obviously trying to get the funding for it. And then if you're a student and you tried to pay off, like you did the monthly payments, or like Manny said, it automatically comes out of your income. I think, especially if you have a higher total loan from or student debt, the interest rate definitely matters.
Thank you. Isaiah, right now that you're a current college student, what are the best options for saving money students can take now before reaching any debt? Any advice for high school students you may have?
Yeah, I just say that they work in the summer, try to learn as much financial advisement as they can, and to prepare themselves because you never know what happened. And like for me, for instance, it was just at the end of me applying, I needed to take out loans. So I just say for the high school students to prepare themselves because you never know what will happen. And just like for the student loan forgiveness, it's just probably like what Manny said, a one-time thing. So I just say to prepare.
Good point, Isaiah. Thank you. Manny, will the student forgiveness relief have a long-term impact, or is this a short-term fix?
I think you can see it as both, right? I think the short term, yes, we're going to see X amount, 10,000, 20,000 relief for some borrowers. Long term, we see that the income driven repayment plans are being modified to lower the percentage of monthly contributions. So that's the one long term thing. I think what this really calls for, and I mentioned this at the top of the program, is like our education system, particularly our higher education system, needs to move away from this debt financed model, right? Moving forward, we need more systematic reforms to make college not only accessible, but affordable for all students, especially students who are most in need of support to successfully complete a degree and climb up that socioeconomic ladder. So that could mean, doubling or increasing the Pell. That could mean here in California, more funds for Cal Grants for the middle class scholarship. That could mean really working towards a federal state partnership that creates a path to debt-free college. Because at the end of the day, this is not the silver bullet. This won't fix everything, but it is progress.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I have a question for either Isaiah and Jasmine. Right now that you guys are current students, would you guys like to see this in the long term for future students? Jasmine, we'll start with you.
I say yes and no. Yes, because future students will be able to get the opportunity to meet myself or Isaiah is getting, as well as as of right now, the amount of tuition isn't going to change in the next few years. So what I'm paying is still going to be what someone else is paying, and why is it fair that I get some forgiveness and then they don't?
Isaiah?
I feel like it should be accessible for future students because, even though we are having an inflation, we don't know if it's going to get better or worse. And like if it gets worse, then tuition will cost more and it will just be more money be distributing out even within our governments for the federal Pell Grant. And but more students are going to need more money through scholarships. So it's just going to put us in more debt, more or less. So yeah, I think it should be.
Good points. Thank you, guys. Manny, can the loan forgiveness plan do anything to help make college more affordable?
The places where I would point to this being more affordable, again, I go back to the IDR plans, the income driven repayment plans. That is really kind of the long-term solution to make it more affordable. That being said, this is a much larger issue, right? I think Jasmine touched on this, right? Tuition is going to look the same. From now into a few years potentially. I think the biggest driver of cost right now for post-secondary education, and I'd love to hear Jasmine and Isaiah's thoughts on this as well, is non-tuition costs, right? Cost of housing, cost of food, cost of transportation, cost of books, school materials, right? All these non-tuition factors are truly the ones that are driving up the majority of cost of college right now. So it's one thing to cover tuition. I think the next thing we need to move on towards is really trying to address some of these non-tuition issues that are sometimes the factors between a student, paying for books, paying for rent, getting a second job, going to like that's a lot to balance. So I think in the long term, if we're really talking about making college more affordable, tuition is a factor, yes, but I think the biggest driver is going to be some of those non-tuition costs, which we need to get under wraps.
Absolutely. Jasmine, Isaiah, would you guys like to briefly touch on that?
Yeah, so I did live on Csun housing last year, and I do pay out of state tuition, so it's already more than people in state do. And yeah, paying the on campus housing, that just made it even worse. I think it was like added another $10,000. I moved off campus. Luckily, it's a little cheaper, but it's still a struggle to go to school full time and also have a full time job and try to make my payments and have some left over for myself at the end of the month.
Isaiah?
Yeah, just what Manny was saying, for me in my situation, it was more of the non-tuition costs. It made it hard because not only did I have to move, I had to live off campus too because of how housing filled up so quickly. So it's just more of, I believe we need to focus more on the non-tuition costs because it's just rising and we don't even know if it's going to get better or worse.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing your experience. Manny, how are lenders and student loans reacting to President Biden's relief plan? For example, are they impacted?
You said how are lenders and say
Yeah,
that
like
again?
the lenders and student loans who give out student loans to students, how are they affected by Biden's relief plan?
That's a great question. I would assume, and this is just my take. I actually haven't even thought about this one, but I would say they're probably not as excited that they're getting some of that debt canceled. That is kind of the business model they're at. But again, one of the things that I'll just return to is at the end of the day, we should be more concerned with what our students need and how do we meet their needs instead of this huge business structure that is running on debt and is running on their potential wealth accumulation, their financial health in the long run. So, I'm sure they have some issues and problems with it. I think for me, what I want to know more is how is this taken by students? Will they take advantage of this and how is this going to affect them?
Absolutely. Now, for my students, what are your thoughts on this? How can you guys benefit from this relief plan?
So one is obviously it'll just cut down maybe $20,000 for my loan. I am still a sophomore, so I still have a few more years to go. as well as who knows how long it will take me to pay off my debt. And I'm concerned about the interest rates will just keep adding on and on. So if I do get approval, if I apply, then that'll definitely help reducing and prolonging my payment.
Thank you. Isaiah, do you want to briefly touch on that too?
I just, well, she covered most of it. So like, I just feel like it would just be a stepping stone into the right direction to accumulate wealth. So I feel like even the students who even have more than me in debt, it would just be somewhat of a relief off their shoulders, which can, they have more focus more towards the school than the cost of the school.
Good point. That's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank all three of you for joining me today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be in community with y'all.
Okay. You're watching On Point. We'll be right back.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
It took 20 years, and I got my third child, who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that can be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker hordes.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at SheCanSTEM.com.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at Csun On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and Santa Clarita Valley Television. For all of us here on Point, I'm Giovanni Reyes.